In the last few years, our nation has seen massive waves of protests for change and demands for racial equality. On this episode of Roundtable, we'll examine one movement that has grasped widespread attention and recognition, an era that is inspiring people around the world to recognize the racial issues in America. You're watching Roundtable on KNWT, Channel 8.
Hi, my name is Corbin Smith and I'm a sophomore at Northwest Missouri State and I'm a supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement. So growing up, my mother is half white, half Mexican, and my father is fully black. They treated me like every normal human being would, and they brought me up in a household of love and respect. And so growing up, I led a pretty normal life, except for the fact that I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, and all my life I've been to predominantly white schooling. In July, I wrote my first article about the Black Lives Matter movement because it was so polarized in the media during the summer and the quarantine period. But as I got into this school year, I decided that this conversation needs to be talked about more, especially in a rural town where, you know, diversity isn't as talked about as it is in a big city like where I'm from. You know, I do feel uncomfortable, and ever since I started this path of figuring out what college I want to go to and I decided to attend Northwest, my parents definitely told me I need to watch out for where I'm at because bad things happen to people like me in small rural towns. So I decided to take my experience and, you know, relate it to a lot of other experiences that have happened on campus. I want everybody to learn and not so much use their anger in terms of this discussion, but more as experiencing somebody else's point of view.
My name is Jaden Ferguson. I'm a sophomore and I'm a student athlete here at Northwest, and I am an outside right side hitter for the volleyball team. The student athlete community is really they're very supportive. And throughout my time here at Northwest, a lot of the teams have come together. I also went to predominantly white high school, which at the time I didn't really think anything of it. But as I got to college and met different people and just kind of connected with some more black community members, I did realize there were some things that people may have looked down on me, or people did view me differently. One of the things I do look back on that a lot of biracial kids do get is that they get the nickname the whitest black person I know, which I did have that a lot, and that's not something that is talked about a lot. For some people, they don't realize it's an insult, and for the longest time I just never said anything to my friends, but when I did, they just didn't know that was something that probably wasn't okay to say. Like, they just hadn't had that experience. I think a lot of people are willing to sit down and have that conversation, and with the peaceful protests going on and with a lot of the movements going on, it's opened up that conversation for me and other people.
My name is Bryana Jones. I am a senior at Northwest and I support the Black Lives Matter movement. I am originally from Kansas City, Missouri, and by the time I was in 3rd grade, my family moved to Raytown, which is just like a suburb. I guess during that transition, something that I noticed even in that young age was I went from a school that was predominantly African American and then to a school where I never had another black teacher until I came to college. So with the hashtag I Can Breathe at NWMSU was more of a response to the university's decision to admit a student who had mocked the death of George Floyd. And with reading the comments from different Black and minority students and seeing that a lot of them felt like their voices and stories weren't being listened to or heard. So I decided to create the hashtag and was really just hopeful that people would respond to it or even just allow their voices and stories to be listened to. So put the hashtag up on a Friday and there were so many responses and it got university attention too. And even the Maryville community began to realize just some of the racism that was happening on and off of campus. My freshman year here was incredibly difficult for me. If I'm being honest, I really don't know why I stayed after my freshman year. It was during Advantage Week when my roommate asked me if she could call me a racial slur and if she could touch my hair. And after telling her no to both of those situations, she still proceeded to touch my hair and just treat me differently because of my skin tone. Just even dealing with the ignorance that they just simply weren't aware that just because I was a Black student doesn't mean I want to talk about the experiences that Black students or Black people have. And I've definitely helped out on different aspects of campus with being on interview committees for UPD officers or for the Diversity and Inclusion Office to hopefully put people in place who can offer that support, as I will be graduating in a semester and won't be here for their entire time here at Northwest.
I definitely think that on campus, like, there's a lot more people that are willing to listen now, just because there has been a lot of conversation sparked over the past couple of months about Black Lives Matter and just about race. But I still think that there's a large part of campus and the community here that thinks that they know what a lot of people go through every day and just kind of their thought process.
While those voices are being heard, there's not any institutional changes to make the campus feel safer, nor is that in Maryville.
So you guys think there's anything that Northwest could do better to, lift the voices other than mandatory diversity and inclusion training that people tend to, throw away just because they don't want to go through the process?
A lot of people from Maryville or in Maryville are from small towns or from the Kansas City area. So those are completely different backgrounds.
I think also the campus kind of pins it on the Diversity and Inclusion Office to care about diversity and inclusion problems, Or in all actuality, because we're in Wells is what I'm thinking of, but the communication department doesn't need the diversity and inclusion's permission in order to do a event that supports minority voices or Black voices specifically. So I don't know, I think once it becomes an issue that everyone cares about and not just a specific office on campus, it'll be better.
Some people, their parents, don't worry that they're walking around at night in a small town. My neighborhood, I choose not to walk by myself alone just because there are people in my neighborhood that do have Confederate flags. And that's something that also makes me nervous as a biracial woman to be walking alone in my neighborhood. Even though it is a small town, and a lot of small towns do say that is, a lot of small towns, they say it's okay, to walk around, everyone knows everybody, but it makes me nervous to walk around in my neighborhood alone, even if it's midday.
For me, it was a lot of ignorance from my professors that I feel personally made it difficult to want to go to class. I definitely chose to skip a lot just to avoid their level of ignorance or just feeling super alone in a class full of people, and then having to go to my room. And I spent a lot of time there because I didn't know where else I would feel safe without having to be questioned or having to deal with something that would make me uncomfortable.
It's kind of crazy that we've gone through so much as a community that's just something we can shrug off. It baffles me that we can hear such terrible things, we can be told such terrible things, and we're supposed to assume that nothing's going to come from it, and we're just supposed to be okay with that. And that's something I think Maryville should learn from, and institutions around America actually should learn, because these things happen and because they've been happening, that doesn't make it okay for us to just sweep it under the rug, before coming into this, I was thinking about, we're probably going to mention George Floyd, we're probably going to mention Bryana Taylor, but we don't think about all of the other names. Like Tamir Rice is a very popular one, and he still seems to get like swept under the rug, like we've been saying. And it's kind of sad because there's been so many killings that we don't even really like realize. And it's, sorry, it's just ridiculous that we have so many of these that we can't have them all on one shirt because there's so many. And I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Yeah, most definitely. I think even further that I have like younger siblings, or even like my little cousins, or even like further down the line with my future kids of like, man, should I even bring kids in the world for how crazy it is, you know? Like, and just having to realize that like these conversations we have are the same conversations our parents have to have with us, and that we're most likely gonna have to have with like the future of like America. And it sucks that like it's one, tiring, and it's almost like you can never leave this cycle of oppression and racism. And it is sad. It really sucks.
I just look back at like what instigated these events. With Emmett Till, it was because he supposedly whistled at a white woman, and he was brutally murdered for that. George Floyd, it was a fake $20 bill, and now he was also killed. Bryana Taylor, wrong place, wrong time. Like, it was just very small incidents that any other person could do, and they're still here. Like, there are other people out there that have had a fake $20 bill and used it and gotten caught, and they're walking around today.
I think it's so much easier to follow a trend when everyone else is doing it, you know? And then, but outside of that, like you said, no one else has to care about this. Like, I highly doubt any white parents having that conversation with their kids, you know, because they don't have to worry about those same issues. And the fact that, like, it's so easy for people to just, like, doing it on social media does nothing for them. It doesn't impact any part of their day. They don't ever have to think about how it feels to go into a Walmart and be judged for the color of your skin. Or just to go running. Like, the Ahmaud Arbery thing is so crazy to me, that all he was doing was running and still was seen as a threat. And I don't know, I think it's because it's so easy to say, oh yeah, I'm up on this, but then also I don't educate any of my friends, I don't call out any of my family members, I don't correct my own bias and stereotypes that I have. So I don't know.
I think a lot of people don't realize that you can go out and learn stuff on your own, and it's not up to somebody else for you to learn it. The Black experience is very, 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 very difficult to understand, and a lot of people who haven't seen it don't understand that. So I think you have to come in being ready for anything and being ready to accept that that's how it is. And the fact that you don't see it doesn't mean that it's not real. Do you guys understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree. Like, it's about taking that first step and taking the initiative to go learn about that, about a different culture, or about someone else's past experiences, or about a community's experience. And I know personally that not everyone is going to take that first step to go do that. But I also think that with education, like, that's where that piece can come in for those people that may not be the first ones to go to a Northwest event to go learn about Black history or about the Black community. So that education piece does come in there and making our education better. I think right now it is very broad and it's very general, whereas we can ask those tough questions, we can talk about those difficult topics in class or through a diversity training.
To learn more about diversity and inclusion here on the Northwest Campus, visit the DI office webpage at nwmissouri.edu/diversity.